offers over 216 programs and plans in various disciplines. It's part of the renowned Sharda Group with operation in areas like education, healthcare, and IT. Being a global university with students from 85 plus countries and academic partnerships with 250 plus universities across the world like USA, UK, Italy, Canada, Russia, Slovenia, etc. The university offers a truly international learning environment. That's why it says, the world is here, where are you? Now, talking about the conference, green technology signifies any kind of environment friendly or clean technology. It further relates to the products and innovation of devices used in environmental science, green chemistry, environmental monitoring, promote sustainability, and conserve the natural environment. Green technology includes varied natures of products and systems. Green technology is way forward to reduce emissions and help mitigate climate change. It covers technologies that help to both adapt to and mitigate the impact of climate change. The conference intends to deliberate upon the IPR in special context to climate change, to promote the sustainable development with the help of IPR with discussion on green IP, to explore the issues related to technology transfer in the context of IPR and green IP, to promote the creation and exchange of knowledge among professional, academicians, and scholars in this area, wherein green IP and climate change mitigation technologies will be deliberated upon. I, on behalf of School of Law, Sharda University, would like to extend a very warm welcome and gratitude to all the academicians, scholars, and students from various prestigious colleges and university to take out the time to be part of this conference. Before I start introducing the dignitaries, I'm happy to share with you that we have received an overwhelming response and we have selected few papers for paper presentation in three respective technical sessions. Today, we have amongst us chief guest of this enlightening conference, Honorable Mr. Justice Michael Wilson, Judge, Supreme Court, State of Hawaii, USA.
Thank you.
Justice Michael Winsel was appointed to the Hawaii Supreme Court on April 17, 2014, after serving as the Circuit Court Judge of the First Circuit since May 10, 2000. As a Circuit Court Judge, he presided over Adult Drug Court, Adult Mental Health Court, and the Felony Criminal Trial Court. Justice Wilson is a founding member of the Global Judicial Institute on the Environment and adjunct faculty member of the Jindal Global University Law School in Sonipat, India. Prior to his appointment as Circuit Court Judge, Justice Wilson was the Director of the Department of the Land and Natural Resources, Chair of the Board of Land and Natural Resources, Chair of the State Water Commission, and a Trustee of the Koaleview Island Reserve Commission. He was awarded as lifetime membership in the Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies in 1999. Previously, he was a partner in the law firm of Pavey Wilson and Glickstein and Hart Wolf and Wilson, where he practiced civil and criminal trial and appellate law. Justice Wilson received his law degree from Antioch School of Law in Washington, D.C., and bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Our guest of honor, Honorable Ms. Justice Pratibha M. Singh, Judge High Court of Delhi. Justice Pratibha Singh graduated as the first rank holder from Bengal University. She was offered the Odas Scholarship by the Cambridge Commonwealth Trust to study LLM at the University of Cambridge. She enrolled with the bar in 1991. Before being elevated to the bench, she was a leading IPR lawyer in India. As managing partner of Singh and Singh, she advised clients and handled cases related to commercial disputes, arbitration, telecom, broadcasting laws, media laws, writs, regulatory issues, education, etc. She has regularly appeared before the Honorable Supreme Court of India, High Court of Delhi, TD-SAT, IPAB, trademark and patent offices. Various awards has been in her name. like the IP Litigation of the Year 2012, the Asian Woman in the Business Law Awards given by the Managing IP for Excellence in Litigation, and so on. She was a member of various professional bodies. She was elevated as a permanent judge of the High Court of Delhi on 15th May 2017. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sibaram Khara, received his PhD in engineering from Jadav University, Kolkata, in Next Generation Wireless Heterogeneous Network. Currently, he is serving as the Vice Chancellor and the Dean Academic Affairs in the Sharda University. Previously, he has served as the Pro Vice Chancellor in the Golgotia University. He has supervised 4 PhD scholars and completed one DST funded project. Dr. Khara is a life member of IEI, IETE, and member of IEEE. He is editor and reviewer of various reputed international journals. Now, Mr. P.K. Malhotra, former Secretary, Ministry of Law and Justice, Government of India, and also a distinguished professor. He is a postgraduate of MA Political Science and LLM. He is a gold medalist in international law from Delhi University and has more than 40 years of experience in the field of law. He retired as Law Secretary from the Ministry of Law and Justice, Government of India, where he worked for more than 25 years as an officer of Indian Legal Service. He is a recipient of National Law Day Award from International Jurist Association and also from Indian National Bar Association for contribution in the field of law in government sector. He is also recipient of award for leadership in ICT and cyber law jointly by TEMA, CMAI and Telecom Export Promotion Council of India. Now let me introduce to you the guiding force behind this event without whose able guidance and continuous support this event wouldn't have been possible. Professor Dr. Pradeep Kulshreshtha, Dean School of Law, Sharda University. He graduated in law from Kurshev University. Professor Pradeep Sir received Masters in Law and PhD degree from Jodhpur University. Dr. Pradeep Sir has been awarded honorary doctorate by National American University, South Dakota, USA, and also received a merit scholarship from the government of Uttar Pradesh. Prior to joining Sharda University, he was with K.R. Mangalam University as professor and Dean School of Law. I will now request kindly Dr. Pradeep Sir, Dean School of Law, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shivangi, for such a elaborate introduction of the chief guests and guest of honors. It is an honor and distinct privilege to welcome Chief Guest, Honorable Mr. Justice Michael D. Wilson, Justice Supreme Court, State of Hawaii, USA. Guest of honor, Honorable Ms. Justice Pritva M. Singh, Judge, High Court of Delhi. Vice Chancellor, Sharda University, Professor Shivaram Khara, and our distinguished Professor, Mr. P.K. Malhotra, former Secretary, Union Ministry of Law and Justice, in this international conference on green intellectual property and climate change mitigation technologies way ahead. Honorable Mr. Justice D. Wilson is, to me, he is like a professor of law, because whenever we request him, he is more than gracious. He is very kind, and he readily accepts our invites, and he shares his wisdom. We are much obliged, Honorable Justice, for your gracious presence. And Honorable Justice has delivered many leading judgments of on the field of constitutional law and environmental jurisprudence, and we are looking forward in future also that Honorable Justice will keep guiding us and mentoring our School of Law. Thank you very much, Honorable Justice, for sparing your precious time and gracing this inaugural session of this international conference. Honorable Ms. Justice Pritva M. Singh, Judge, High Court of Delhi. She is one of the leading jurists of India in the field of IPR, in the field of RTI, and many times our students and faculty are reading her judgments, which are widely reported in the national media. And the judgments are very incisive, and she is one of the, I'm sure in future also she will be elevated to higher responsibilities. Thank you very much, ma'am, for gracing the occasion and accepting our invite. In future also, we would request that please keep guiding our faculty and students. And I think you are also one of the professor of laws, because whoever comes, it's not easy to address conferences where faculty of law and law students are there. And to my understanding, to my past experience, Only those who have that teaching spirit in them, are those who have that mentoring zeal, they accept the invite and they take out their precious time and they address. Thank you very much, ma'am. In future also, I request on behalf of faculty and student to kindly accept our invites. Mr. P.K. Malhotra, sir, he is one of the leading law professor. He is helping legal education evolve after demitting his office, and he is very, you can see him on a lot of, news channels, delivering many insightful, and very wise talks. And we are very fortunate that he is with our law school since last 4 years, and we are much obliged. Sir is guiding us, encouraging us to do best in the legal profession, and so that our faculty and students they keep excelling. Thank you very much, sir, for being there for us. Vice Chancellor Shada University, Professor Shivram Khara. He is the leading professor and he's the leading academician of international repute. And I'm thankful, sir. You are always encouraging us, always supporting law school. Thank you very much, sir, for being there always for us. In the wake of climate change scenario, going green has become one of the necessity to have sustainable development, which will ensure the existence of all of us. The sustainable development depends on the resilience and capacity to mitigate climate change. And we have received a lot of papers, and we have, after this inaugural session, we have three technical sessions wherein paper presenters shall be presenting their papers. And we are going to uh, uh, keep these papers in book form with the ISBN number so that the knowledge created is disseminated to the right channels. So once again, with these words, I won't take much of your time because all of us are eagerly waiting to hear chief guest and guest of honors. And I once again, on behalf of students, faculty, management, non-teaching staff, participants, once again take this opportunity to extend a very warm welcome to the chief guest and guest of honor and the other participants. In the after technical session, we have a validity session wherein Honorable Mr. Kumar has kindly has consented to deliver the chief guest address. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I will now request Mr. P.K. Malhotra, former Secretary, Ministry of Law and Justice, Government of India, to share his views with our guests and participants.
Thank you, Shivangi.
Thank you, sir.
Honorable Mr. Justice Michael Wilson, Judge, Supreme Court, State of Hawaii in the United States. Justice Pratibha Singh Patil, Honorable Judge, Delhi High Court. Professor Sivaram Khara, Vice Chancellor, Sharda University. And my dear friend, Professor Pradeep Kulshrestha, Dean, School of Law. Distinguished participants of this international conference being organized by the School of Law. My heartfelt thanks to the chief guest as well as the guest of honor for accepting our invitation and coming to this international seminar. I think the COVID-19 situation has created a new normal in which all of us sitting in the comfort of our home are able to attend this kind of seminar. Otherwise, I think it would have been not possible for us to organize this kind of conference and invite people from United States and Honorable Judge from Delhi High Court, sparing her precious time on a Saturday when normally she would have been devoting time in writing judgments and clearing her pending work. So thanks to both of them for joining it. And Sharda University, let me share with you, because I'm associated with the university after demitting office in the Ministry of Law and Justice. With this university, I've been associated. And I find we have always been taking a lead, and every crisis has been converted into an opportunity, and COVID-19 was also converted into an opportunity. And during the last 1 year, the number of seminars, rather I would say webinars, which we have conducted by any stretch of imagination, I mean, it is an exception, which I don't think any other university would have done. Now, I won't take much time because I know most of the participants coming here and who have joined this webinar are more interested is listening to the expert view, the distinguished guest today, the guest of honor, as well as the chief guest. But I would just like to make some opening remarks with regard to the topic of the convention today. And I was looking at some data yesterday evening, and I found that it says that India is the world's fourth largest economy. and fifth largest greenhouse gas emitter, accounting for about 5% of global emission. India's emission increased 65% between 1990 to 2005 and are projected to grow another 75% by 2020. On a per capita basis, India's emissions are 70% below the world's average and 93% below those of the United States. As in many other countries, India has a number of policies that, while not driven by climate concern, contribute to climate mitigation by reducing or avoiding greenhouse gas emission. In India, renewable energy has started playing an interestingly important role in the augmentation of grid power, providing energy access, reducing the consumption of fossil fuels, and helping India pursue its low carbon development path. Now, Prime Minister of our country, Mr. Narendra Modi, while addressing the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, said, while from a historic and per capita emission perspective, India's contribution to global warming is very low, India is one of the leading nations when it comes to taking steps to address this issue. And in January 2010, the National Solar Mission was the first mission to be operationalized under the National Action Plan on Climate Change. Using a three-phase approach, the mission's objective is to establish India as a global leader in solar energy by creating the policy conditions for solar technology diffusion across the country as quickly as possible. The initial target of the mission of installing 20 gigawatt grid connecting solar power plants to the year 2022 was enhanced to 100 gigawatt to be achieved by the same target year. Now this because I was working with government at that time, and I remember personally when the Prime Minister called the Minister of the Secretary of the Renewable Energy, and he said, and it was his initiative that the target of 20 gigawatt was increased to 100 gigawatt without changing the target year. I think it's a very good development or very good step taken by the government of India on the particular subject which we are dealing today. And not only that, thereafter, India has established many specialized institutions to create a conducive environment for orderly growth, which include establishment of some institution like National Institute of Solar Energy, National Institute of Wind Energy, Institute of Bioenergy, and Solar Energy Corporation of India Limited. India is one of those countries whose laws are TRIPS compliant, and I know Justice Singh will be deliberating on it much more in a detail because she is an expert on the subject. And in addition to the strong legal framework, it is essential to create social awareness and also important to understand for our generation that we should live an environment which is a healthy and livable environment for our coming generation. Green technology is a way forward for reducing emission and helping mitigate climate change. We know that as Professor Pradeep Kulsresht has said, we are going to have 3 technical sessions where the participants of this conference will be presenting their papers and will come out with new suggestions in the area and what work is being done. I hope the participants in the technical session of this conference will come out with some very useful ideas to help the country in achieving the objective of developing sustainable green intellectual property technology. I wish the conference all success without taking much of your time. I again thank our chief guest as well as the guest of honor for sparing their time. And I know all of you are more interested in hearing to the views of these experts. So I don't want to stand between the experts and between you. Thank you very much for affording this opportunity to me to share my thoughts on this conference. Thank you, Shivangi. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. I will now request guest of honor, Honorable Ms. Justice Pratibha Singh, Judge High Court of India, to share her enlightening views.
Very good morning to all of you. Justice Wilson, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm sure you have much better weather than we have in Delhi here. You must be enjoying the lovely beaches. Mr. Malhotra, Professor Kulshrestha, the Vice Chancellor, faculty of Sharda University, and dear students and all other attendees today. We are speaking about green technologies, which I think is kind of the necessity, or you may say necessity of the day for the whole world, not just for India. And there is much more hope today than it was in the near past, because on the question of climate change, etc., some of the leading and developed countries of the world may change their positions. And since there is so much more to look forward, and the pandemic has made us think about green technologies, reduction of pollution, much more than ever before, I think there could have not been a better occasion to talk about green technologies. Any discussion on green technologies always begins with the UN program for action from the Rio program in 1992, when the declaration came as to how countries would be adhering to protecting the environment, less polluting industries, and have a more sustainable growth across the world. The various components of green technologies, as you are all aware, would not just be about the weather or about the climate, etc., but a large number of components and elements go into that. So we have to focus on, first of all, from renewable energies to cleaner power to more electric based vehicles, lesser use of fossil fuels, better treatment of waste materials, and in general focus on cleaner habits for humankind as a whole, less use of plastic, etc. So I think if we just focus on power generation or electric vehicles by themselves, it is not going to help. All these elements have to be put together with a proper action plan, which most countries are doing today. And it won't be very long. I am very optimistic that over the next 5 to 10 years, we will be seeing a much better world in terms of climate change than what we are seeing today. Because the emission of green gases, use of carbon fuels, etc., is being reduced from time to time. And there is at least a focus, a much bigger focus today than ever before. So I think if all of us as policy makers, innovators, implementers, governments, and the international community as a whole puts their head and mind together, I think we can achieve this. And it is not, as I think the best example would be Delhi. And whenever we've taken immediate steps to reduce pollution in Delhi, we've seen immediate effect as well. This winter was much better than ever before in the recent memories. And there has been lesser pollution from what I see. Of course, the media tells a different story, but as people living in Delhi, I'm quite sure that the statistics are much better than ever before. Now, let us come to what are the intellectual property issues in green technologies that we are confronted with, and how do we deal with the intellectual property issues? There are broadly, I would think that there are trademarks, designs, etc., which are all kind of traditional intellectual property. Trademarks, designs, patents, trade secrets, integrated circuits, plant varieties, geographical indications, and all these intellectual properties. But when it comes to green technologies, I would think that 4 of the intellectual property rights have more importance than the others. And those would definitely be patents at number 1, designs at number 2, copyrights in relation to software and green software production. I mean, development of green software. And fourthly, trade secrets. These are the four broad intellectual properties which would be very important in the context of green technologies. The first and the foremost being patents. And there are two schools of thought when it comes to patents and green technologies. While on the one hand, one school of thought seems to suggest that granting of patents in green technologies and environmentally friendly technologies is absolutely essential to promote innovation. On the other hand, there is a feeling that patents in fact impede the access and the implementation of technology and the growth of the technology. So because there are patents which protect green technology, there is a feeling that it is not easily, you cannot spread the technology so easily, because there are huge licensing and assignment issues, and negotiations are not so easy in these technologies, because most of the technologies are developed in the developed world, to which China is an exception. And so if you want the developing world to get green technologies, there has to be a much easier access platform that is created to be able to give access to green technologies. And I will come to that at the end of my address as to what are the ideas that could be there for greater promotion and dissemination of green technology. So on patents, coming back to patents, there are these two schools of thought which exist as to whether patents should be granted and should not be granted. But I, for one, would believe that without innovators getting adequate incentive, there won't be enough development of green technology. And therefore, while we face the challenges in dissemination of patented technologies, that should not take away, and we should find solutions on that end, rather than saying don't grant patents in the first place. Patenting is absolutely essential in green technology and environmentally friendly technology, because there is a huge amount of investment that goes into development of these technologies. Just like in the case of pharmaceuticals or other forms of technology, I would think that finding adequate funding for development of green technologies is very difficult. Once you fund the technology, it is not sure as to how much of the technology would be practically implementable or can go into commercialization, because the percentage of green technologies which go into commercialization is not very, very high, because of the the large amount of infrastructure that is required for these implementation of these technologies. So I would think, considering the amount of funding, financing, and the investment that goes into development of green technology, granting of patents is a proper and a time-tested way of ensuring that there's adequate incentive. So patents are one of the biggest forms of intellectual property we would focus on when talking about green technologies. Let's come to designs. Designs, I think, play a very crucial role in developing more environmentally friendly products, because every small innovation, or if you say an incremental innovation which can be there, can obtain a design. There are several examples of better designed products which are more environmentally friendly. For example, the manner in which toilet seats use water, the amount of water they consume, right? It may be something very simple, but if you reduce the quantity of water that they consume with better cleaning, then that product can be design protected. So I think that when we are talking about green technologies, the incremental innovation, or what you would call in Indian terms as Jugaad innovation, has a very big role to play in making environmentally friendly products. For example, recyclable products, recyclable paper, designs of papers, designs of notebooks, these are all required and necessary to ensure that we are able to bring out smaller products in an incremental manner which are more environmentally friendly. So designs would be the second and the most important form of IP. The third would be copyrights. I say so because most of us don't realize what do copyrights have to do with green technologies. I think that copyrights play a very important role in green technologies, and the reason for that is this, that most of the green technology, which is IT based or software based, requires specific programs to be written for them. And we do have problems on the manner in which software is protected. In some countries, it's protected through patents. In other countries, it's protected through copyrights. Either way, the software that goes into green technologies, which is either called as green software or green operation software, we need a large amount of development of software to implement these technologies, and therefore copyright plays a very important role. Fourthly, I would say trade secrets play a crucial role in green technology, and the reason for that is not far to seek, because a large number of IP, a large amount of IP also involves data, or data which is confidential information. These cannot be kind of put into any of the specific slots of IP, and they can only be put into a mass of trade secrets and confidential information, which can then be called as a trade secret, and when the licensing of this takes place, the trade secret is protected on its own as a form of IP. So these are the four broad methods of protecting green technology. Of course, trademarks will be very important to make sure that the green technology is made very eye-catchy for the market and for the consumers. But that's a different thing that we're talking about. That's about marketing and promotion of green technology. Now let's come to the kind of technologies and the kind of issues that we face. In the context of renewable energies, we have solar energy, windmill energy, etc., which is there. In the context of automobiles, of course, we all know electric vehicles. And I was very interested to see that yesterday in Delhi, they announced that there is a tender which is being opened for charging of electric vehicles, 100 electric charging points across the city. So this is going to be the order of the day as we move forward. I think just like we have petrol stations in our cities and in our towns and villages, there will be charging stations across the country, and that's where once the vehicles are developed, there will be vehicles and automobiles which will be provided with charging stations, and they can then replace the traditional modes of other fuel like diesel and petrol and CNG, etc., which are kind of which will be sources which will be completely eliminated. Maybe we won't even have them in the next 50 or 100 years. So these are technologies, these are fuels which will not be available. And therefore, the way I look at it, in the next 10 to 15 years, you can actually see charging stations across most of the countries in the world, with vehicles having been developed. Then we have power grids, better power generation through cleaner and greener technologies, such as I don't know if we can replace the thermal and the nuclear power plants, but yes, solar technology is one way to go forward, so long as we have adequate capacities to manufacture solar cells and erect them. So they need large tracts of land for erection. So I think we will be able to do with that. So I have 5 more minutes before I can end my speech. So I would now like to come to the biggest and the most challenging part of green technology, and what is it that is stopping the the dissemination of technology easily. So I think there is, first of all, a lack of trust between the developers and the users of technology. We need to build better trust factor between the developers and users. One of the ways to do it is to have, as you all know, whenever technologies are developed, there are 2 or 3 forms of licensing that are available. And broadly, if we categorize them as voluntary and involuntary licensing mechanisms, under involuntary, you could even have statutory or compulsory licensing mechanisms. But my own view is that involuntary licensing should be resorted to when voluntary licensing cannot work. And voluntary licensing should be the rule and not the exception. And for voluntary licensing to be effective and to ensure that it doesn't act as an obstacle in the spreading of the technology, what we need to do is create platforms where there is proper negotiation between the owners of technology and the users of technology. It is these, without the users of technology, we will not be able to bring we will not be able to bring the large scale changes that we need. You know, the users are much more than the developers of technology. We should understand that. And therefore, one of the models which I feel is easily sustainable at a global scale is the model which is now currently being used for standard essential patents in telecom technologies. There are standardization bodies which have been created across the world for telecom. In the same way, there can be standardization bodies. These standardization bodies can prescribe standards for green technology, and those parties and entities who contribute to the said standards can be made to license them on a global scale, subject to voluntary negotiations of royalties, which is how it is happening in the telecom space currently. And I think even in the pharmaceutical space, I remember there was this big innovator, a US company, which decided to give out one of its biggest large-scaling medicine to 14 Indian generic companies. And they said, you please develop the generic medicines and formulations and sell it in 100 countries of the world. And we will charge royalties on that basis. So the developed world, they kept for themselves. The developing world, they licensed it to an Indian company, to 14 Indian companies. So in pharmaceutical, in telecom, we are seeing these kind of models of licensing already. And I think we should kind of have a global discussion on how to make sure that there's a platform for discussion and international transfer of technology. The policies in our countries, like in India, we have to have stable and predictable policies. So long as the policy is stable and it is predictable, people are willing to transfer technology. We can't keep changing our policies every 3 months, every 6 months, every year. We should have a stability in policy. The stability should be there in the law. According to me, there is nothing stopping. The law is absolutely in place. We don't need to make any amendments in the law. It's only the implementation that is required to be looked at. And one of the things that comes to my mind, which I would like to highlight, is the fact that I was very, happy to see in India, India is has the highest location of investments in top 5 wind farms, as per the WIPO recent report. So India is number 1. Germany, United States are number 2 and 3, and China is number 4. So in wind farms, India is on top of the list. And I think India is doing a lot, being with our limited resources. We are much more focused on, environmentally friendly technologies being adopted into India. And I think we are on the right path. Maybe there are some implementation issues. I would really commend all the policy makers and the implementers to go forward with a positive mindset and make sure that India gets the right kind of technology for implementing environmentally friendly schemes across the country. And with this, I would end my address. Thank you very much for this opportunity for speaking to you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's our immense pleasure that Justice Pratibha has spared a valuable time to enlighten us on such a contemporary topic, and we hope she will be kind enough to grace our future endeavors as well. I will request Chief Guest, Honorable Mr. Justice Michael Wilson, Judge, Supreme Court, State of Hawaii, USA, to share his thought-provoking views.
Well, let me say aloha. Aloha from Hawaii, and that's a word that is a word we think of as namaste, where we recognize the beauty in all of us. And I have been blessed to experience the beauty of India, and I miss India. The pandemic has prevented me from being with you, and I come to India 2 or 3 times a year. And so my remarks will reflect that. Also, I want to make sure and give a special thanks to Dr. Malhotra for allowing me to speak, and I'm honored to be here with Justice Singh, who I've heard so much about. Thank you for your remarks, Justice Singh. Dr. Sharma, it's a pleasure to be here with you. And Professor Kulshestra, you've been so kind to me and putting up with my many requests from Hawaii. So thank you very much. And of course, I'm pleased to be here with Vice Chancellor Kara as well. Okay, Hawaii. It's evening here, but in the minds of many people, it's the ideal environment on Earth. And the collective human consciousness, that is a wonderful kind of greeting that many of us get from Hawaii wherever we go because of the magnificence of it. We share a partnership with India that has become more and more evident here in Hawaii. It's discussed more and more, our relationship with India with respect to climate change, because as our chief climate scientist says, India will be affected the worst by climate change of any place in the world, but Hawaii is very, very close. So when I speak about green intellectual property in 2021, I'm speaking from the context of a community that is in danger. I could show you our beautiful beaches now. If you came in 20 or 30 years, you wouldn't be able to see very many of them. They'd be washed away. And we have very, very difficult problems with respect to our major city that will flood, and that would mean we'd be losing $2 billion a year. The pandemic has already cost us so much that we have a $1.2 billion deficit. We're in the toughest economic situation Hawaii's ever been in. But as I think this audience is aware, it's especially hard if you're 40 years old or younger. Those of us that are 40 years or older, our lives aren't going to be that badly impacted by climate change. The context of green intellectual property, the context now with which we analyze concepts that are meant to protect property, intellectual property, such as trade secrets, patents, copyrights, trademarks. I would submit this is a very, very different world that's coming with respect to intellectual property. Think, for example, about the internet. How much did intellectual property slow down the internet? Something wonderful happened. We agreed to allow flexibility. So patents, and trademarks, and copyrights, trade secrets didn't hold that up. What is coming now? It's a little hard to describe because I actually have climate anxiety, which is a concept many judges have, since climate change is the most important issue facing judges in the world. But let me speak a little bit about climate anxiety and green intellectual property in 2021, because what is the defining, unifying factor with respect to the most intense issue humanity has ever faced, that is global warming? What is the factor that unites us? We only have 6 or 7 years to make the changes that are fundamental to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Then we're likely to be locked into a scenario that within 40 to 50 years, the Earth will heat up above 1.5 degrees. And very likely it's possible by the end of the century, it would heat up 3 degrees from pre-industrial levels. What does that mean? In 2015, the countries of the world entered into a historic agreement, the Paris Agreement. It was a proceeding under the United Nations, and I'm sure this audience has all heard about it, the Paris Agreement, in which the world agreed, all the countries agreed with some rare exceptions, that greenhouse gas emissions would be reduced so the Earth would not heat up to 1.5 degrees, because the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, this remarkable international scientific agency with representatives from all the countries, made it clear the capital system that we depend upon will likely start collapsing after 1.5 degrees. So from the point of view of Hawaii or humanity or India, however you want to look at the kind of global perspective, we are unified by the fact there is a limited solution horizon to the problem of global warming. This is not a factor that's ever applied to these major human social problems we have in our world. For example, who has the best religion? Should women be able to make decisions about their body physically? Should people be able to carry guns? Who has the best political system? These are all issues that are very important, but they don't necessarily have a limitation in time, like 6 or 7 years. So this is an extraordinary challenge for the concept of green intellectual property. According to the world's leading atmospheric scientist, Sir David King, he just gave an address in China about 12 months ago. He was the architect, along with Lawrence Fabius, of the 1.5 degree limit in Paris. So he had great hope after that. In his statement at this conference before 4,000 people in China, when he was brought in by the Chinese government, was he has climate anxiety, doesn't want people to give him credit because in 40 or 50 years, and here's the example that he used when he talks about the world order unraveling, he said, look at India, look at Bangladesh. In 40 or 50 years, because of sea level rise, Bangladesh with 160 million people has to be evacuated. So his point was we need to take action now. And since then, and I was just speaking to him about 4 days ago, he has embarked. The reason he's Sir David King is because he was knighted in England because of his work on climate change. He has embarked as a professor at Cambridge of atmospheric science to put together a fund even bigger than the Green Fund. And you may recall the Green Fund is a $20 billion fund that was put together in the Paris Agreement in 2015 to help the transition into renewable energy by taking funds from developed countries and moving them to developing countries. It hasn't worked. And his point is we need to have an extraordinary coordination among nations now. And he is developing that for the COP that's coming up in November in Glasgow, to when the countries of the world come together to try to put together a fund that's similar to the one that has been recommended by the International Energy Agency. Now, for a moment, consider the intellectual power of the human race. We know that much of it is in India. So this is a very good reason for this conversation about intellectual property. Now, the International Energy Agency says $4 trillion need to be spent for at least the next 3 years for the issues that we're talking about. In large part, it's using technology to be able to solve climate-related problems. $4 trillion in 3 years. Well, this brings up the issues that were discussed in such a powerful way by Justice Singh. How much do we want to slow each other down? How much do we want barriers to being able to trade the information that's going to be put together, particularly by the brain trust of countries like India? How much do we want to slow down the transfer of that information? Or the United States. Of course, the United States has been an impediment to the transfer of technology in a way that might be considered constructive when it comes to green technology, but that's changed. The United States now has a different approach. So let's think about what's going to happen in the 6 or 7 years if things work as Sir David King would like it to work. When you spend $4 trillion a year, well, what will be happening has a lot to do with technologies I know that Sharda has spoken about. I have great respect for Sharda, which is an innovative, powerful institution, in large part why this conference is taking place. What is going to happen with that investment, and what is our hope for being able to, in a humane way, use technology for the future? 2 words: algorithm and artificial intelligence. Maybe the 3rd word should be quantum computing. What is about to happen with the digitalization of electricity worldwide, in the process that Justice Singh was talking about of electrifying cars, for example? What's going to happen in terms of the digitalization of conserving of energy? Artificial intelligence will be a new technology with new patents, new opportunities for copyrights, new opportunities for trade secrets, and new opportunities. Why do we need it? Why do we want to slow each other down, or do we want to take the model of the internet? We do not have a choice, I would submit. If we're going to survive, we have to come together in a way that is extraordinary. So the manner in which we require licensing, or the manner in which we require that individual companies be given copyrights or patents, to some extent should be equated, I think, to the pandemic. We've worked really fast. Humanity's worked really fast. We weren't slowed down by patents. We weren't slowed down by copyrights. We were able to move fast. And the Secretary General of the United Nations, who has had to deal with this terrible pandemic, says over and over again that the world has to understand that climate change is far more serious. As he says, the world can recover from the virus, the COVID-19, but it cannot recover very likely if it heats up 1.5 or 2 degrees. And we are already getting close to 1.5. And the world of 3 degrees is unimaginable unless you really work at it. You know, when you consider Calcutta's got to be evacuated, Phoenix has to be evacuated, Shanghai will flood, Mumbai will have flooded long before then, as well as Rio, as well as Hawaii. Rainfall will drop 50% in places in Europe, and, you know, the glaciers that the great Ganges River depends upon will be about gone. So, in conclusion, what do judges have to do about this? And what can technology do about this? I was contacted by a fellow named Mitch Thrower, I want to tell you about in concluding. He came to Hawaii, wanted to speak to me because of a number of circumstances. He's a wonderful, powerful, successful entrepreneur who has written software, and he just recently wrote software to create a company called Eventbrite. You've probably heard of it. It's international. If you haven't, Google it, Eventbrite. The reason he came to talk to me is because of his concern about technology, and also he has put together companies, put the private capital together, taken them public. He's extraordinarily well off, and he's like 40 years old. And the number one concern in his life is his 5-year-old son. He came to talk to me about his 5-year-old son because he was saying when quantum computing arrives, it can solve enormous problems if we let it. And the way he was describing it is that it can keep track of all our telephone calls, can keep track of where everybody is on Earth, can also keep track of all their expenditures with their credit cards, can design the solar arrays that get put into space that are the size of Wyoming, and be able to put them into space and in real time position them to maximize the energy from the sun. And after doing all that, it will barely make a dent in its artificial intelligence. We have this power coming. But he was talking to me because he wanted the judges to be aware of this. He wanted the community of lawyers to be aware of this, because colleagues and young people and young lawyers, we have a contest going on here. You have the little giants versus the little gorillas versus the giants. Who are the little gorillas? Greta Thunberg, for example. Who are the little gorillas? Look at the great lawyers of India that are trying to appeal to judges to do something about the right to life under the Constitution of India. Emergency. We have emergencies that are being repeated in courts, whether it's the great Supreme Court of Pakistan with the Lagari case, the great environmental court judge in the Gloucester case in Australia. We have great cases that are starting to rise, like Urgenda out of the Netherlands, that allow future generations, the young people whose lives are threatened, to seek relief in the court. So as a final story, let me speak about the Supreme Court of India. And of course, to me, the Supreme Court of India in many ways is my hero. But that is a court that allows people to have a voice. The United States is much more limiting in terms of a kind of injury that's required. And it also is willing to recognize what I call the authentic law when it comes to things like the right to life. Right to life includes the right to a clean and healthy environment. So when the Court of India has to face the issue of emergency, it is a supercharged power. Now, in the United States, we supercharge our courts when it's an emergency. As you may know, during World War II, we incarcerated all the Japanese people in the United States because we assumed that they were dangerous because we were fighting Japan. It was a tremendous example of overreaching and a violation of due process and a big mistake, but it shows you how much power the court has. My court has just released inmates. And under the emergency of the pandemic, we've ordered the release of incarcerated people. The emergency that is here is the greatest emergency facing humanity. So what is the brave court of India going to do when future generations seek relief and want, as has happened in Pakistan, for example, the government to come up with a climate protection plan? So this is something that justices, judges around the world talk about. And in Hawaii, at our law school, we often talk about this, Justice Singh. So imagine the courts of India and the courts of Pakistan, even the courts of the Philippines, have something called sua moto jurisdiction. We don't have it in our country. And maybe we will end up getting it after we watch what happens in other parts of the world. But that jurisdiction means the court can act on its own. The court can file an action and use its power. And would it be more likely to file an action where there's an emergency? Logically, one would think so. So imagine the court of Pakistan. You are a justice in the Supreme Court of Pakistan, and you see that your country is going to have to disappear. It's going to have to be evacuated in 40 or 50 years. It may be that a suo moto lawsuit is filed that issues orders that try to address this emergency. Or it may not be necessary. If the little gorillas, and that's what I think of as young people that think that they can have a chance against the energy companies, have a chance against the corporations, have a chance against the owners of capital. Those three sectors that are the ones that perpetrate the present future where the Earth is going to heat up above 2 degrees. The little gorillas are those individual lawyers, those young people with the courage to think that they can get justice from their courts, and maybe the courts will suspend for a while the concepts of trade secrets, patents, copyrights, and trademarks until we have no longer an emergency. So I usually conclude by showing a slide of the tiger. I found a tiger in India. It's my favorite animal. I love it. It's a representation to me of an ancient culture that didn't destroy its tigers, that still has a love for whether it's the Brahma bull that comes up on the road or whether it's the tiger that's the vehicle for the goddess Durga. That is what can save us. That kind of compassion, that kind of understanding that we're all part of this incredible planet that needs to be protected, not just for its beauty, but also because of its spiritual significance. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address you. And I say aloha and namaste from Hawaii. You're all invited to come visit whenever you can. And if you do, please let me know, because I have a beautiful beach house that I've had the pleasure of. Our great Justice Swatanter Kumar has been there, and he does whatever we always tell him, please try to bring the justices of the Supreme Court. Please try to bring professors. So maybe I'll see you in Hawaii. Aloha.
Thank you, sir. It's our enormous delight that Justice Michael has spared his precious time to enlighten us on such a contemporary topic, and we hope he will be kind enough to grace our future endeavors as well. We are happy to share that we have got our conference proceedings and messages from legal luminaries published in the form of souvenir. I request our chief guest and guest of honor to release the souvenir.
With the kind permission of chief guest and guest of honor, I will be doing this. Actually, we got this early in the morning, got printed, and if I am allowed, I will just release it. Symbolic.
Sir, if Justice Wilson and Justice Pratibha could announce the release of the souvenir book, and then we can open the hard copies.
And if Pragati can show the slide.
Yes,
so
sir.
that will be virtual release.
Yes, I will show, sir.
Much obliged.
Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Justice.
Professor Pradeep, is it not visible on screen?
Yes, sir. I'm displaying. Dr. Lipika is displaying.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have
Justice.
all the abstract of all the paper presenters in this book along with the messages. And Justice Michael's message is also there in this abstract book. Pragati, please full screen कर दीजिए.
We are privileged to release this souvenir in the presence of Honorable Justice Wilson and Honorable Justice Pratibha, and we shall be printing in book form also later.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Thank you. We have your message, Justice.
Pragati, could you scroll down and bring the slide to Justice Wilson's message? The second last message of Justice Wilson's.
And one of us can read out for all the participants. Yeah, this one.
Pragati, you have to zoom it full screen or just read out from your end.
Should I read it out, ma'am?
I think that is limitation of technology. We shall forward it to all participants.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. After conclusion of the inaugural, we'll be sharing the soft copy of this souvenir booklet to all the participants and dignitaries as well.
Ma'am, may I read the message of Justice Wilson?
Please, Shivangi, go on.
As Justice Wilson says, I'm happy to know the School of Law, Sharda University, is organizing the international conference on the green intellectual property and climate change mitigation technologies way ahead on 6 February 2021. The conference theme is very appropriate in the current scenario, when on one hand, the world faces the challenge of COVID-19, while on the other hand, our environment is getting degraded. The objective of the conference, which has been formulated, is quite connecting to the contemporary challenge which we are either facing or going to face in the near future. Few objectives I am mentioning herein, that is, to deliberate upon the IPR in special context to climate change, to promote the sustainable development with the help of IPR with the discussion on green IP, to explore the issues related to technological transfer in the area of green IPR, and to promote creation and exchange of knowledge among professional, academic, and scholars in the area of green IP and climate change mitigation technologies. The issue of green IP and also sustainable development is much debated. The sustainable development idea has been included in every subject, but now the discussion must take place on the implementation. In the wake of climate change scenario, going green has become the necessity for the sustainable existence. Given that the global climate crisis poses a difficult challenge, green technology is unflatteringly being recognized as a solution to the crisis. I take this opportunity to congratulate Sharda University and appreciate the efforts made by the team of the organizers of this conference. I also appreciate the thoughtfulness and efforts made by the organizers and wish this important virtual conference all success. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Now I will like to invite Dr. Lipika ma'am to present the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shivangi. A very pleasant evening to Justice Wilson from India. And namaskar to everyone. A graceful and warm afternoon to all the participants and dignitaries in this session and to our most valued guests. It is my proud privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on the occasion of International Conference on Green Intellectual Property and Climate Change Mitigation Technologies. I, Dr. Lipika Sharma, Associate Professor and Convener of the conference, on my behalf and on behalf of the entire fraternity and management here, extend a hearty gratitude to our Chief Guest, Honorable Lord Chief Justice Michael D. Wilson, Judge Supreme Court, State of Hawaii, USA. Justice, it's our immense pleasure to have you as chief guest for our event. Thanks a lot for sparing a time to share your views on this occasion of international conference and joining virtually and being part of the release of this souvenir. Despite the different time zones you agreed to join, we are really grateful, Lordship. And further, respected justice, once the situation of pandemic is over, we would like, as already Dean sir has proposed, we would like to have you on our very green campus and would like to benefit from your long drawn experiences. Thanks a lot once again and namaskar from us.
Namaste. Aloha.
Aloha. Now I would like to extend a special thanks to our chief guest, for guest of honor, Honorable Justice Pratibha and Singh, Judge, High Court of Delhi. Now, just delivering vote of thanks for Justice Pratibha, and I get nostalgic because I've grown as a lawyer in initial years of my practice at Delhi High Court, seeing ma'am arguing IPR matters when not many lawyers were aware of IPR litigation in Delhi. So, ma'am, watching you has encouraged me to specialize in this area, and because taking inspiration from you, I specialized in the area and had my PhD in IPR only. And I would like, so it's our immense pleasure, ma'am. Thanks for sparing a time despite your very busy weekends, as even to grace the occasion and share your knowledge, which is immense, on this very interesting and upcoming topic, without discussing which we cannot discuss IPRs in today's scenario. Many thanks once again, ma'am, for joining and sparing your time and deliberating on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lipika. Namaste to everyone.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Special namaste to Justice Wilson. Nice to
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Justice Singh.
और मनोज जी आप भी ठीक है सेहत ठीक है ना सबकी
Now I would like to thank Honorable VC sir as well. He could not join because of his already preoccupation and he's traveling at present. But I am really grateful to our Honorable VC for his continuous guidance and encouragement. Now I would like to thank Professor P.K. Malhotra. He's always there supporting us, guiding us, and always there as a family elder. We are really grateful to you, sir. Thank you so much, Malhotra sir, for joining me and deliberating.
Thank you.
Now, many thanks to respected Dean sir for being a guiding light and giving me and my team this opportunity to conduct this international conference. Dean sir's continuous guidance gave us encouragement to take this leap. Now, I would like to finally thank all the participants and paper presenters who will be joining technical sessions after at 1:30 for participating. And I would like a special mention of our technical team or office staff, Rishuji, Sudeshji, and Prakashji. Last but not the least, thanks to my dear colleagues Shivangi and Priyanka for their continuous contribution and hard work in making this event success. And special mention of my organizing team and specifically Subhasmita, final year student, for her continuous hard work to ensure that we sail through this event successfully. Thank you once again, everyone, all the participants. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
And
Thank
one
you.
final word, as I have already stated, and Dean sir has mentioned it twice, we'll be compiling all the paper presentation, getting the plagiarism check done, and we'll be publishing that within a month's time in the form of a book, and we'll be sharing with all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much.
Shivangi ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Shivangi, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Now you can speak, Shivangi. We can hear.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am, thank you. Now I request all the participants to join their respective technical session as scheduled. Also, the certificate link will be shared to the participants at the end of the validity session, which the participants need to fill up to get their participant certificates.
Thank you very much, Justice Wilson. We are much obliged for your kind words, for your support, encouragement, and we will certainly be visiting Hawaii, and we will be inviting you to India. Thank you, Dr. Lipika and your team. Thank you, Ms. Shivangi, for very nice comparing. And thank you all faculty colleagues, students, participants, and all volunteers. They have been putting hard work. Office staff, Pragati, Rishu, and Sudesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Please
Thank
join
you,
your
everyone.
respective
Thank you for
sessions
joining.
at 1:30.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.